Welcome to Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by singer-songwriters Sandy Stride and Keith James from Another Midlife Crisis, featuring dynamic New England and national songwriters, engaging performances, and moving backstage interviews.
This is Sandy Stride. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on Twilight Showcase Radio. Well, I am just delighted that we are being joined this evening by Lori Jagow, as well as we will be hearing the music of her son, James Jagow. Now, they are regular guests on our show, but Lori's joining us via Skype. Lori, I don't think we've talked to you for a couple of years. Am I right?
I think it has been a while.
It has been, yeah.
I think since the cruise ship.
That's right. Well, it is so good to have you back. Now, Lori is an extremely talented woman, and she's an author. She also is a really good photographer. In fact, she has her photos up quite frequently on Facebook, and we always enjoy them. She also does homeschooling and counseling, and her son, James Jagow, is an extremely gifted musician, composer. He's also a student at Berklee College of Music and records his own music and writes, and he's just fantastic, as you will hear. He can play a guitar like very few other people we know. I was watching the video today that we had posted on Facebook, Lori, and his hands literally blur when he's playing.
You're right. I think they do.
I am not exaggerating. His stuff ranges from beautiful, mellow pieces that he has written, like soundtracks for a movie, and the full range to pretty hard-hitting guitar work that's wonderful. So we look forward to showing them off. And James just also happens to be challenged on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum, which makes his story even a little bit more enticing. And speaking of stories, Laura, you have some incredible news to share with us tonight, right, about getting published?
Well, thank you. Yes, I am so excited, and I have been since I found out in July that I was going to be published in Chicken Soup for the Soul's The Wonder of Christmas. Wow. So for me, it was Christmas in July when I found out.
Well, we are so thrilled for you. And tonight we're going to hear a little segment because you're going to read a little bit for us a little later on in the show. And of course, as always, we will interview you and alternate with James's music. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by Amy Newmark. Speaking of Chicken Soup for the Soul, she's the editor-in-chief of Chicken Soup for the Soul. She also publishes, you're talking hundreds of books that she's published, and she's an author in her own right as well. So we'll be talking with her for just a little bit to hear a little more about Chicken Soup for the Soul and your book, Lori. And let's see, I think we covered all of our guests at the moment. In addition to that, Keith, we're going to play one of the songs that you wrote, beautiful song, and I think appropriate for the discussion this evening.
Oh, Sail On.
Sail On, yeah. Yep. And that was orchestrated by?
Kerry Ripsch.
Yeah, it's a beautiful version, so we'll be playing that a little later on in the show. Tim McKenney is at WATD, holding down the fort. How are you doing tonight, Tim?
Doing well, Sandy. How are you?
Good. And as always, thank you so much for being there, and all your expertise really comes in handy.
You're welcome.
With all these bells and whistles that we're trying to coordinate tonight.
The buttons and the paper clip and the chewing gum.
Oh, I tell you, it's unbelievable. It sounds like we probably have Amy on in the background there.
Yes, you do.
Right?
She's standing by.
All right. We will, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to just play the first song. We have a couple of pretty short pieces that James wrote, but we're going to play one of them just to get things warmed up. We'll play that in just a minute. We'll be playing Victory, and then after that, we will talk with Amy. Tonight, outstanding authors, musicians, artists, and publishers. They'll remember their twilight moments with more passion and purpose right here on Twilight Showcase Radio. James Jagow, Victory. Beautiful piece. And the reason we're playing James' music, besides the fact that we like him and that he's Laurie's son, is really very relevant because the story that you wrote was actually inspired by when you first discovered his musical talent some 20 years ago. Is that right, Laurie?
That's right. It was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, when he first started playing music and you discovered his incredible talent. So we will be talking more about that. I think right at the moment we're going to bring Amy. And Amy, are you on the line?
I sure am on the line. Thanks so much for having me on. And I loved that song from James. Wow, that really sounded like the best holiday music.
We love what he does, and thank you. And Amy, thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you are, and we really appreciate you joining in this evening. And I think that Laurie's on Skype, and I'm pretty sure she can hear you as well. Were you able to hear her, Laurie?
I can. Hello, Amy.
Hi. So anyway, thanks for having me on. What's funny is that in Chicken Soup Land, yeah, we're aware that it's Christmas, but actually it's Mother's Day for us. That's what I'm working on right now.
Well, that's appropriate when we're talking to Laurie Jagow, so that's wonderful. For those few people that might not be familiar with your wonderfully inspiring series, Amy, can you just kind of give people the overview of what Chicken Soup for the Soul is all about?
Yeah, so this is an amazing book series, and I did not start it. I came in 15 years into its history. I came in 11 years ago, became publisher, editor-in-chief, and I edit every single word of every book that we publish and have done so since 2008. So what we do is actually, I would say, very much part of today's buzzwords because we crowdsource our books. We get about 5,000 or 6,000 stories submitted for each one of our books. And then what we do is we curate like crazy, another buzzword today. We read those 6,000 stories and we choose 101 to go into each of our books.
And you have such a wide range of titles, too.
We do, and I always think, I'm never going to come up with new ideas. And then I do. I mean, like last year, well, actually, it's still this year, isn't it? It's still 2018, except that in my head, we're halfway into 2019.
That's right.
But earlier this year, in May, we did a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Empowered Woman. And that was very much in response to current events. And that book was very well received and gave a lot of women the opportunity to share stories with each other about how they found their self-confidence and their self-esteem and stayed true to themselves. And we recently put out another brand new topic. It's our most recent book. It's called Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Best Advice I Ever Heard. And that book, we sold out instantly and had to do an emergency reprint. Oh, and in fact, we also had to do an emergency reprint of the book we're talking about tonight, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Wonder of Christmas. We're having such a huge Christmas season, and what I'm hearing is that the book industry in general is doing better. I think people are reading again.
Good. That's wonderful to hear. And The Wonder of Christmas, so many of your titles are bestsellers.
We have all of our recent titles are bestsellers right now, and all of them we have run out of and had to do emergency reprints. And actually, it's very interesting what's going on in the publishing world. We have a paper shortage, and it's because the paper manufacturers are sending a lot of the paper they produce to make cardboard boxes for everybody who's ordering stuff online. And so there's less paper available for us to print books. And then also, the printing companies are having, I guess, a labor shortage, maybe because of less immigration. And so we're really having trouble getting our books printed in a timely fashion, and everybody's complaining about it in the book industry. Books that used to take us a couple of weeks to reprint are taking 6 weeks to reprint. So the supplies are very tight, and if you want to get one of the popular Chicken Soup for the Soul books this Christmas, I suggest getting it soon, because in the last week we had to turn down restocking orders from Barnes & Noble, from Amazon, from a bunch of our different major retailers.
You have quite a few very interesting stories to tell. I mean, in addition to the stories that you're publishing, you have knowledge that things that we just haven't heard about, so... From behind the scenes.
I'm the creative person who creates the books, but then I'm
That's
also the
right.
business person who has to worry that, we need a tractor trailer full of gigantic rolls of paper in order to print our next book.
Who knew?
And right, I know, I had not heard that. And on top of everything else, you yourself are a best-selling author. Can you tell us just a little about Simply Happy? Because that sounds great.
Oh, sure. So what I found was when I took over as publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the first thing I did was I read 100 of the old books. And I really hadn't been exposed to them. And I had read the original book, but I hadn't kept up with the series after that. So I spent 3 months reading 100 of the old books. So, roughly a book a day. And
Wow.
I found that I was laughing and I was crying. In fact, I had to change my contact lenses more often because I was, I was ruining them with my tears. And I really came away from reading 100 of the old books, which is, by the way, that's 10,000 stories. I came away changed. I mean, I was so much more grateful for all the good in my life and so much more aware of the ups and downs in other people's lives. I felt so fortunate to have the life that I have, and I felt more grounded and way less judgmental. And people said that I really changed. It was like a crash course in all of this advice and wisdom. And so then I continued, and we've published another 150 plus books. So that's another, 15,000 stories we've published, plus the tens of thousands of stories that I've read from people where we didn't have room for them in the book. So I've probably read, 100,000 of these deeply revealing personal stories from people. And so everybody says I'm different, and I took all of that wisdom and advice that I had learned, and I compiled it all into this book called Simply Happy, where I just take people through what I've learned. And I illustrate my advice with stories from my own life and with stories from our books. So it's been very popular. A lot of our writers have loved it. It had, 80 or 90 five-star ratings on Amazon. It was a very personal experience for me. I spent months just glued to my computer writing that book. And so I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that I have shared with people everything I've learned from Chicken Soup for the Soul so that they can use these very simple tips to become happier themselves. And that's why I called the book Simply Happy.
Wow. And I know that your time is limited, but we should at least mention that you also have a podcast, TV, movies. I mean, you do it all. You're a true Renaissance woman.
Yeah, we have a movie business. We have this really cool company called Popcorn Flix. It's the word popcorn with Flix, and you can watch movies for free with just a few ads in them. Then we have our numerous television shows, which you could see all over the place, including on Netflix. And then we also have a very popular line of, believe it or not, dog food and cat food, a premium.
Saw that.
Yeah. A lot of breeders recommend our dog food and cat food. And
what's the name of it? What's the name
it's
of your?
It's called Chicken Soup for the Soul Pet Food.
Well, of course.
Yeah. And then we have our books, and then we have some spin-offs from our books, and then, yes, we do have my podcast. And my podcast right now, I'm sharing 20 stories from Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Wonder of Christmas, and then I'm also sharing 20 stories from that other recent bestseller, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Best Advice I Ever Heard. So you can hear 20 stories and what we learn from those stories from each of those books on the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast, which is on, iTunes, Google, wherever you like to listen to podcasts.
Wow. And on your Popcorn Flix, is that, do we just do a search on the internet to find that, or can we get that through your website?
No, just go on your browser and just type in popcornflix.com, so popcorn, Flix.com. And it's lots of great movies, and it's extremely non-annoying because you really get maybe 3 or 4 ads during the course of an entire movie, which is very painless. And you get to watch a movie for free on demand, on your computer, on your phone, on your iPad, however you want to watch it.
Amy, what I would like to do is I have another very short piece from James, a total opposite end of the spectrum from the last one, because we got to hear his guitar playing. It's so, as we said, his hands literally blur on the video when he plays. And then when we come back, we're going to ask you why you picked Laurie's story, okay?
Okay, then. That sounds great.
And this one is called Epic Sandwich by James Jagow. That 2 minutes of sheer delight were brought to you by James Jagow, who wrote, composed, orchestrated the entire thing and performed it. Epic sandwich. I love that. Love it. We still got you there, right, Amy?
I am here, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not sure if have you heard James's music before tonight?
No, and I am so happy to hear it because when we pick a story, we really get to know the contributor, and we always end up knowing more about the contributor than what's actually in the story. And I love the fact that I'm getting to know Laurie and James better, and hearing his music, wow, it makes me so happy that I chose this story.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much.
And were there particular things about Laurie's story that, shall we say, drew you in, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's so heartwarming, and I don't want to be the spoiler here. Laurie's going to tell you the story, so I won't divulge any of the details. But here's what I loved about the story. I loved the fact that it was a beautiful act of Christmas kindness from a stranger to somebody who needed a little help for a very legitimate reason. I love the fact that it highlighted the fact that you don't have to be neurotypical to be successful. Here you had a kid on the autism spectrum who had been discovered to have this fabulous musical talent, and then you had a stranger joining in to participate in promoting that talent. And so I actually chose this story to be the very first one in our chapter about Christmas kindness.
Wow. Laurie is nodding, by the way, on Skype. Laurie, you can speak directly to Amy. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, what's that, Sandy?
Did you want to say something to Amy? Because you were nodding a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. The sense of community is what really warms my heart also and knowing now where he is with his music, almost ready to graduate from Berklee College of Music. He's an autistic savant, and he wants to join the Trans-Siberian Orchestra if he had a chance. And to go from the little apartment and not even be able to afford the trumpet to where he's at now because of a stranger who helped in a time of need, who didn't have to. They could have just hung up the phone and collected the trumpet and be done with it, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. But yes, when I read the story, I still cry, and I read it over and over, and I can't even get through it without crying, even though I've lived it. Does that make any sense? To me, it's bizarre, but but yeah,
absolutely. And also, you are going to read a little bit from it in part of it, but I think the idea that there were so many struggles that you were going through back then.
Yes.
And this was it really was one of the twilight moments when the teacher, the music teacher, suggested giving Jim a musical instrument.
Well, that's right.
And at that point, you didn't know yet, right, that he had musical talent. You didn't know yet.
Yeah, they did. They saw that he had perfect pitch in class.
Okay.
And there was two teachers involved. One's in the story and one's not. But the classroom teacher had also observed. That was Jess Smith, and he was a wonderful special ed teacher who helped him pick out the trumpet. And he said he picked the trumpet because, get this, because there was only 3 valves for him to, and he had dexterity trouble.
Because at the time, this is crucial. At the time, he had trouble with his hands. Now he does not have trouble with his hands.
Obviously not. No. He overcame that one for sure. It's kind of ironic, but yeah, just amazing people in the Buffalo community who and the school system who help.
Absolutely. Amy, we love having you stay as long as you want, but I do want to respect the fact that I know your time is limited. So are you doing okay there? Or?
I'm actually going to bow out now hand over
Amy, thank you so much.
and we're going to move that spotlight over to Laurie now.
All right.
And Sandy, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best possible holiday and the best New Year's also.
Well, Amy, thank you so much. And as I told you, and a thank you also to I believe it's your publicist, Maureen, who we spoke to for
My
helping arrange
person,
this. Marketing, okay. What I mentioned to her, I'll say to you as well. We enjoyed having you tremendously. You have so many more stories to tell and things to promote. And if you would ever like to do a feature with us in the future where you're the main act, we would love to do that. So please keep that in mind, okay?
I am in. I'll
been a
come back to
pleasure.
talk about our advice book in time for New Year, New You. How's that? We can help people with their New Year's resolutions.
We will connect outside of the show during the week, and we can make plans. We can certainly book more. We do this with all of our guests. If they enjoy being on our show, we have them come back. So we would be delighted to have you come back and promote anything you want.
All right. And Lori, thanks again for writing that wonderful story, and I hope we'll see some more stories from you.
I am ready to write more stories, Amy. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the privilege.
Okay, thank you
All right.
both.
Thank you. Take
Good
care and
night.
have a great night.
Okay, bye.
Oh, that was just wonderful, Lori. I'm so glad that you. And it was really thanks to Lori that she let Amy know about this, and what a nice perspective to have the publisher get involved with this show. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we should add that there is a website, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And when you go on there, they give a great deal of information, including all the lists of their books, and you can get free samples and so on when you can read some online. But they also give information about how any of our listeners, can get involved and submit their stories as well. So definitely go on the site. And
they'll give different topics at different times depending on what they're looking for. So it might be Mother's Day or Easter or whatnot, and you can go and you can see what topics are coming up and submit for those particular topics.
Exactly. All right, so we've gotten a little bit of the overview of the story and talked a little about the fact that there were some hard times that you were through. Now
sure.
In addition to dealing with the system and trying to help James get a good education, which isn't always easy when you have...
there was different phases. The very first phase prior to the story place was a very difficult school period where we dealt with many different school districts. And 20 years ago, I don't know if it's much better today or not, but 20 years ago, the school system just really wasn't geared for kids on the spectrum. And, and of course it depended on the school district. It really did. But we went, we had tried several different ones, and it was to the point where he refused to go to school. At 7 years old.
Wow.
At 7 years old, my little boy would not go to school. Yeah. I mean, you might expect that at 16 from some kids, but at 7, that's just not a good thing. And we finally found a district, which was the Starpoint School District, who had a wonderful special ed program. And like I said, Jess Smith and Mr. Volpe, who I'm going to be reading about, who was the band leader, were wonderful in accommodating Jim's special needs and helping him to find some motivation through music to go to school.
And essentially helping you to discover him.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Then there, after post story, I guess I would say, we came up into a whole nother challenge when we ended up homeschooling because he was no longer in the Starpoint School District, and we lost all that wonderful support. But then we came up against this whole new set of challenges, and we ended up homeschooling, and we supplemented our homeschooling with college. This kid was only 15 years old, and I was taking him to our community college and allowing him to take music classes, and here he was, just this little guy playing in the orchestra and the guitar ensembles with the big guys.
Wow.
And it was kind of comical, but it worked. It worked. It helped him to get some socialization.
And we're going to talk a little more about that afterwards, but clearly we need more than one show to cover all this. No, I wanted you to. In fact, I want to just say we will again have you back so that we can continue the story. But let's go back a little again to set up the story, the 20 years ago. In addition to dealing with all of those struggles, you were dealing with what so many of us have dealt with, the financial challenges. You had been through a divorce, and then you lost your job. Is that right? You got laid off on top of that?
So I had some part-time work that I was laid off from. It's always been difficult with the special needs to work full-time, and especially as a single parent. So times were always tough ever since my divorce, and Jim was only 2 years old when I got divorced. So it just is not easy to try to make ends meet no matter what.
Yeah. So what we're going to do next is we're going to ask you to read us just a short portion from your story to give people a kind of a flavor for your sample of your writing. In a sense, this is where it all began in terms of the music. And now, when we play the music, because James is so accomplished, we see the other end. And when one of the songs that he's written is called "Normal to Extreme," and I'm not sure I really appreciated the meaning of that until I put together your story with this song, and it really does go from the normal, which you were
To the
going
extreme,
through,
right?
of trying to make ends meet, just trying to figure out how to pay for the trumpet, never knowing 20 years later
Right.
what the extreme would be. While both
What the
of
extreme would be.
and for both of
exactly.
you're getting published, him being discovered. So what I'm going to ask you to do is read that section from and tell people again the name of the story.
Sure. The name of the story is A Musical Gift, and
Okay.
it's from Chicken Soup for the Soul, The
All right.
Wonder of Christmas.
And then as soon as you're done with that passage, we're going to go right into James's fantastic song, Normal to Extreme. So you go ahead,
Sure.
Lori.
Sure. The smell of warm vanilla and sugar filled my apartment as I frosted the last batch of cookies. And then the phone rang. I licked the buttercream icing from my fingers before reaching for the receiver. Hello? Miss Jago? Yes, this is Miss Jago. This is the collections department attempting to collect a payment for your son's trumpet. The instrument was almost paid off. I had gotten behind in payments since losing my job. How much is the current payment? I inquired. You would need $100 for your account to come current, she explained. It might as well have been $1,000 because I didn't have it. My heart sank as I thought of having to take my son's only source of motivation for going to school away from him. Well, you see, I lost my job and I haven't been able to keep up with the payments. Will you accept a smaller amount until I can get caught up? I asked. No, ma'am, the woman said firmly. If the $100 is not paid in full, we will have to repossess the trumpet. I hesitated a moment. That would be just awful, as my son loves playing music in school, and it gives him a reason to go. I sighed. You see, my son's autistic, and school is very trying for him. The tone of the conversation shifted. What is his music teacher's name? The woman asked. Mr. Volpe, I answered, somewhat confused by her inquiry. And the school I have listed here is Starpoint Central, she went on. Was she going to send someone to the school to get the trumpet? But then the woman asked if I would wait on hold. Several minutes later, she came back and said, Miss Jago, I just spoke with your son's music teacher, and he tells me that your son is quite talented. Please accept the trumpet as a gift from us. Again, I hesitated. Did I hear her correctly? You can consider the trumpet paid in full, she reassured me. Merry Christmas. And as I hung up the phone, tears of gratitude filled my eyes.
was Normal to Extreme, and it was written, orchestrated, and performed by the incomparable James Jagow. And that he also wrote and included for the movie, and I want to say this right, is it Tromaville? Tromaville by Adrian Esposito, who's a wonderful filmmaker who's actually been featured on our show, and we look forward to having him return as well. That was fantastic, Lori and James. Just love that, and I love the segment you read from the book. It gets me every time. Really does.
Thank you. I cry every time I read it too.
I bet. And Laura, you're going to stick around, and we'll talk with you some more, as well as we will play another fan favorite of James, one more of James's song. And in addition to that, we will be airing Keith's song, very inspiring song, Sail On, all after these messages.
Elves have gotten into the WATD studios. They're taking over and recording some of their favorite songs. The good news is they brought presents. Listen to 95.9 WATD weekdays through December 21st. When you hear those elves giggling, we'll play one of their songs. If you're the 9th caller to identify the song they recorded, you win the next present waiting under the WATD Christmas tree. Keep an ear out for those elves and get your hands on what's under the Christmas tree at 95.9 WATD.
There's a different melody to play. Hi, this is Jen Chapin. Tune in to Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
On 959 WATD and 959WATD.com.
And visit twilightshowcase.org.
It's find your joy and let it show.
Artie, welcome back. And again, tip of the hat to Twilight Showcase. Amazing program. Keith James, Sandy Stride, beautiful job they do each Sunday night. And if you're not aware of their wonderful program, tune in just prior to the Natural Health Show. It's a great program, again, featuring New England and national singer-songwriters, poignant songs, originals, dynamic performances, great stuff. You like organic supplements, organic foods, organic lifestyle, holism. This is holistic organic music. Real, passionate, heartfelt, soul-felt music. Check it out. Twilight Showcase. Great program.
And thank you so much to Jen Chapin and Mark Mancola for those promos. And Jen Chapin, we just enjoy having her on the show so much. And yes, she is Harry Chapin's daughter, and she's also done a studio concert here for us, it was just wonderful. So we look forward to her return. And Mark Mancola is a fantastic natural health practitioner, and we are so pleased that he is back on WATD in the 8 to 9 slot on Sunday nights, right before Twilight Showcase. So be sure to check his show out. Lots of great information, and he takes calls and answers questions on the spot. And you can also check out his website for lots of helpful information, markmancola.com. He is changing lives and saving lives. All right, Keith, we're going to do a special dedication tonight of your song, but I first would like you to tell people a little about the song and the orchestration.
Well, the song is basically looking at things that are ahead of you and moving on ahead regardless of what kind of stands in your way. And it's orchestrated by a very good friend of mine that I used to work with way back in my 20s. And he was a very talented guitarist and pianist. I had him do the orchestration for this song.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job. And tonight, Lori, we want to dedicate it to you and James because through all of the challenges that you both faced, it seems to us that you continued to sail on.
Thank you.
When the waves are high and the winds are strong, a bitter cold sea mist daylight has all been gone, and you head straight into the storm, and you feel like you will never make it home. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. There's a hill to climb, but you fall. Without this lake, I'll never make it at all. Through all the tears and all the pain, we will climb together all the way. Now take my hand and sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on through the stormy seas to where the water meets the sky. Sail on beneath the sunset of a rose purple night, when the sun, the moon, the stars won't little and ache away. You keep drifting in and out, and you can't see what's ahead. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Now change your cabin overnight, and you can't win the good fight. That baritone voice could fill the air. It's just not the same when you're not there. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Sail on through the stormy seas to where the water meets the sky. Sail on beneath the sunset of a rose purple night, when the sun, the moon, the stars won't little and ache away. You keep drifting in and out, and you can't see what's ahead. Sail on, sail on, sail on through the stormy seas to where the water meets the sky. Sail on beneath the sunset of a rose purple night, when the sun, the moon, the stars won't illuminate the way. You keep drifting in and out, and you can't see what's ahead. Sail on, sail on, sail when the waves are high. Sail on when the winds are strong. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on.
And that was Sail On, written and performed by Keith James and orchestrated by...
Carrie Ripsch.
And special thanks to Hope Rich as well.
Absolutely.
Lori, thank you again so much. This has been so nice talking with you. We forgot to mention to people that might be new to the show that you can follow along and get all the links for the people that we've been speaking with tonight by going to my Facebook page. And here's the shortcut. It makes it really easy to find. Just go to twilightshowcase.org. That's twilightshowcase.org. twilightshowcase.org, and you will find everything there, including the promotions and all the... what we need to mention is that the book that you're in, Lori, has been sold out, but...
Yes.
But you still have some, right, to sell?
Or
did you just sell out?
Only in the well, they're selling out. I think even Amazon is running out now. But for those who are listening here in the Buffalo area, we have them at D Salon and Lockport Electrolysis.
Okay, but do you still personally have some? Can people still get some from you, or are you sold?
I do. They can email me at loriannjagow@gmail.com.
Okay, and we're going to post that on my page as well and plus you can find Lori on Facebook, and I have her already tagged on my posts that are up. So again, go to twilightshowcase.org, and if all else fails, you can always call me during the week at the studio here. Our remote studio in Plymouth. Will give you that number in a minute, and then I'll put you in touch with Lori, and you can call us anytime during the week at
508-224-5673.
And again, you can find me on Facebook as well. Lori, I think what we're going to do is talk for just another minute or so to wrap up, and I think we're going to say our goodbyes, and then we will finish up the show with one of my all-time favorite James Jagow songs, Pirate Captain Blubber's Chest.
That's a good one.
It just brings in all the different styles of music that he does in such a beautiful way.
Well, that's it. The versatility is there for sure.
It's unbelievable. And that was one of the ones he's done several years ago. It was one of the first ones that drew me in when I first met you. And again, you can be found on Facebook.
I also write a blog for Pendleton Center Church with a lot of these same kind of faith-inspiring and heartfelt stories. You can find on my blog at pendletoncenter.org.
And again, if you would post that link on my Facebook page, that would be great. You can even put it as a comment under the promotion or whatever, but we want to make sure people can find you. We would love that. And again, you do so many other things that we need to talk about in the future, so we look forward to having you come back. And thank you so much for connecting us with the folks from Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Thank you, Sandy.
We appreciate it. By the way, next week, be sure to tune in to Twilight Showcase. We're going to have our annual holiday festival on Twilight Showcase with some great holiday songs written by local artists.
Shameless self-promotion.
And that reminds me, if you'd like to hear more Keith James music, be sure to go to keithjames.info. I think we're going to say our thank yous, Lori. Thank you so much again. Thank you to Amy Newmark from Chicken Soup for the Soul. Keith James, terrific. Thank you. Tim McKenney, and of course, Ed Perry. We would not be here without you. Lori, do come back soon and give a big hug to Jim from us.
I'd love to, and will do. Thank you.
All right, Keith, I think it's time to go.
Till next Sunday, note those twilight moments.
Where the darkness meets the dawn.
I'm Keith James.
This is Sandy Stride for Twilight Showcase Radio. See you next week.
what you've been waiting for. This is what you've been waiting for.